Dr. Dave Schmidt is a professor of applied politics at Bethel College, and he returns to the show to continue talking about Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, and that all-important Christian vote. Welcome back to the Harvest Show.
Great to be back.
Professor Schmidt. Now, we are about, 2 weeks away from the Republican convention, and then the Democratic convention comes up. I mean, are we expecting any curveballs at the conventions? What are your thoughts?
Well, there are a lot of the political professionals, the party officials, they're all looking for better options, particularly on the Republican side. Donald Trump says, "Hey, I won the delegates. It's my nomination." So we're going to see a lot of bumping and shoving, and they'll make nice in public, but behind the scenes, it could be quite a show.
Now, when we talk about the all-important Christian vote, last time you were with us, a few weeks back, you mentioned something pretty significant, is that in the middle, there's this 50% of the discontented. And
right.
In that mix, there are a number of people of faith and in the evangelical community as well that are not necessarily all sided with one candidate or the other, and they're not all red R's and or blue D's, and there's quite a bit of still a vying for their attention and for their vote. Right,
and the election is going to be won on that basis, and particularly there'll be states in the Rust Belt. So if Donald Trump can win the Rust Belt, he has a chance. If he can't win the Rust Belt, then it'll be an interesting election night for his supporters. So we're going to see a lot of action in like Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan. Indiana will probably get a little bit bleed over from that. And so and key demographic there is the Christian vote. Now, as you imagine, Christians are sort of a spectrum, some who are profoundly devout and others who kind of wear that a little lightly. And it's the ones in the middle, the ones who some people will call cultural Christians. They'll definitely go to church on key holidays. On Mother's Day, they're there with mom and those kinds of folks. They identify as Christians. I would imagine that they are Christians. But they're the ones who are up for grabs. Up for grabs. Good way of putting it.
What would you say about Hillary Clinton? Do you think she'll be able to connect the dots with millennials? Because younger voters, I mean, they flocked to Bernie Sanders. They felt the burn throughout the entire primary and caucus seasons. What does she need to do to turn that around?
Well, most political professionals will tell you that no matter how divisive a primary season has been, most voters come home. Okay. And so the thing for Hillary is a lot of those millennial voters were not so much Democratic voters as perhaps Obama voters. And so it's the personality of Obama that's kind of one of these wild cards here. And some of them don't really have that loyalty to Hillary. They've already voted against her once before, they voted against her again, they voted against her, a couple times is in the general election. They've got all kinds of reasons to vote against her. So the question is, will they show up? Will they campaign? Will they, man the phone banks and those kinds of things?
Yeah. Well, so they're not necessarily have allegiance to the Democrat Party as opposed to President Obama when he was campaigning.
Right, and between the 2008 election and the 2012 election, a couple million of those didn't show up. The dream that was offered in 2008, the reality in 2012, those folks, a lot of those young people didn't show up. Bernie kind of refired some of that, and we can see a big drop-off in the general election as well.
Well, both presumptive nominees, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, both have a trust issue. People just dislike them.
Right.
For
the
Hillary,
most unpopular candidates in American political history.
So for Hillary, it's trust. For him, it's just outright dislike. You love him or hate him. It's just no in between, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's a very polarizing candidate.
And so I'm starting to hear a lot of conversation about choosing between the lesser of two evils. And this is where I guess, our vote as Christians, is that a possibility? Can you choose? And, how does God look on that? Choosing between the two of them.
I think this election might be the occasion of an unusual outpouring of prayer. I think a lot of people are going to be praying, how can I vote? How should I vote? So we'll see. We'll probably, as we get closer to the election, we'll probably see some clarification of that. Support tends to shift one way or the other fairly early on, or within the weeks before. The other is, a lot of folks are saying, I'm not going to vote for either of them. And I think that's a credible position to take. That voting is in the American system one of our sacred acts. In our civic life, and I won't give this person, either of them, a vote. Now the challenge is that there are a lot of very important races down ticket. A lot of people who really deserve support, really deserve votes. And my personal concern is folks will be so captivated by the two running at the top that they'll neglect some very important people who need support. Your future senators are people who are running for Congress. Your future Congress people are people running for city council or county, statewide. Yeah, this is where you develop your future national leaders. And it's key that the right people be successful in the election. So I'm really advocating. Everybody I talk to says, I don't know who to vote for. And I said, okay, that's a good question. Now let's talk about some of the other candidates.
You can leave the presidential race blank on your ballot.
Or you can write in a name. You can write in a name.
Or vote for a third party, or write
I mean, I heard Mitt Romney, I was watching an interview where he told CNN he was not going to vote for, if it turns out to be both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, and nothing happens at the convention, and they end up being the nominees, that he was going to write in a name. And a lot of people are saying, well, that's a cop-out, if you do that. But that's your right if you don't want to violate your conscience.
One of the reasons I'm interested in the down ticket thing is actually I'm an elected official. At the most minor level, St. Joseph County, Penn Township Advisory Board. I mean, that's about as, if we had dog catchers, they would be right in that thing. But partly to, live out the applied politics thing, I'm doing it myself. I'm running for election, I'm trying to get votes. And as a person who's on the back of the ballot, way down, I want those votes. I want everybody who shows up at the polls to put put a check next to my name.
So the big encouragement is, if you can't make a decision or don't feel like you need in good conscience can cast a vote on the presidential, it's still important to cast all those other.
There's a
ballots,
number of worthy candidates all the way down.
When
the
we look at the undercard, if we want to put it that way. Any projections on House and Senate, and what the ratio will be between the R's and the D's there?
People who have access to nationwide polling and then micro polls and so forth, the hunch is that the Republicans are going to take some losses. I think, I didn't check the facts on this, but I think the Republicans are defending 28 Senate seats and the Democrats 10. So just by sheer numbers, and I think it's a good chance that the Senate might flip, right?
Back to the Democrats.
But I don't think the Democrats will get the 60 votes. They need to run the Senate. So it'll be a contested, very interesting Senate. I think the Republicans will hang on to the House of Representatives. Those seats tend to be fairly solid. Unfortunately, in some measure, incumbents always win, and the incumbents are Republicans. So I think that's the case.
They got the advantage.
They have an advantage there.
Well, Professor, we're going to have you back in the fall when it gets a little closer to the election, and you can kind of put things in context for us. To connect with Dr. Schmidt, go to bethelcollege.edu or go to harvest-tv.com. We'll be right back in just a moment. And when we return, Roger Bourne shares why he became a partner in faith with LeSEA Broadcasting.